Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemens of The Athletic and of GiantsCountry.com. Make sure that you are following all the work everywhere that you get football from, but especially make sure you're getting your Giants content from Giants Country, where you can find all of the work that I do. Shout out to PT Patricia Trainer, our editor over there, and all of the fine other writers that we have over there doing great things. We are to the first cut down day, and we don't have all of the cuts right now, so I won't even speak on the couple that have kind of leaked out until the list is official, because I think it's important as journalists to make sure that before you start talking about the demise of someone with the team, that you have official word. So although you could go onto the interwebs and find all of the things that you're looking for as far as who has been cut, who has not been cut, I like to wait until those lists come out officially from the team or from the players themselves before I start speaking on them. One cut I do want to speak on, one that's not going to happen, and although people might want it to happen, just has literally no chance of happening based off of the contract, is Kenny Golladay. And one of the things that I've noticed here in this microwave society, especially with a lot of our Giants faithful, is that there's not a lot of patience when it comes to certain positions or certain players. People tend to forget, right? People tend to forget that a guy like Kenny Golladay was a legitimate number one receiver. But when he was a legitimate number one receiver, he had a legitimate quarterback. Matthew Stafford, for whatever anybody wants to say about him, including me, the fact that he had to have every free agent come to him on the defensive side in order to finally win a Super Bowl, he is a hell of a thrower of the ball. And so when you go from that to the quarterbacks, plural, that he has now, it's okay to recognize that there's a difference. There's a difference in scheme. There's a difference in philosophy. He has now been in 3 different offenses in 3 consecutive years. That plays a role. He's dealt with injuries the past 2 seasons, his last one with Detroit and his first one with New York. We don't really know where he is in his recovery. But you know what I do know? I know you can't cut everybody. You can't cut everybody, and you specifically can't cut Kenny Golladay, because Kenny Galladay's contract is such where it would mean that the Giants were losing money to not have a receiver. Now, some people would say, oh, well, it's a horrible contract. I've heard my girl PT say it. I've heard other people who cover the Giants talk about how bad they believe that the contract is. But the only reason they're saying that the contract is bad is because the performance has not been to the level that it's been in the past. Full disclosure, I have no idea if Kenny Golladay will ever be the Kenny Golladay that he was in Detroit. What I do know is you can't go around just cutting everybody. Yes. Has he left a lot to desire in his efforts? Yes. Which is weird, because when you look at the film of him, a lot of his plays was effort. Going up and getting balls, fighting for balls, coming down with them, fighting for extra yardages. But I also will give him this. While he's still learning the offense and still possibly getting healthier, this is the preseason. And some people are just not made to shine in the preseason. Made to shine when the lights come on. Now, I will say it's alarming. You should stay on high alert. But all of these people trying to figure out ways to cut or to get rid of or to trade Kenny Golladay, you just have to keep reminding yourself that talent just doesn't grow on trees. And although some of those young receivers did nice things in the previous game, a preseason game, versus 2 and 3 and 4 guys on New England, guys who are probably going to get cut, while they had good games, that's still not the real thing. And we know what Kenny Golladay can do when properly motivated and healthy to do the real thing. If he doesn't prove it this year, you can get from up underneath the contract at a much more reasonable rate next year. That's how these things work. But there's no reason to just throw talent away or guys who've had talent away before you ever get the real true opportunity to see if it's done or if there's still some redeeming quality. Darius Slayton is another one. Everything that I hear about Darius Slayton is negative. He never gets afforded any of those same luxuries that so many have given to Daniel Jones. Darius Slayton, at one point in time, people thought he was going to be a star. Ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't too long ago. That was 2 years ago. Excuse me. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when that guy was essentially the number one receiver on the team. 2 years ago, when people thought that he could be the next guy. So much so that they were willing to part with guys like Odell Beckham, right? When Kenny Golladay burst on the scene for the Giants, he was like a rocket ship. He's had some bad times, no doubt about it. He's had bad times. But you have to ask yourself, is it all his fault? And people will immediately go to drops. And they'll go, yes, it's all his fault. He drops the ball. But what about the balls that were not catchable? What about the times that he was wide open where the ball was not thrown to him? Everybody has every excuse for the quarterback when they want the quarterback, but no excuse or no grace to be given to the receivers when they're not performing well. No offense, Giants fans, but many of you are the same people who thought before spring training started that we should get rid of Saquon Barkley. Some of you still believe it. Some of you think that the performances from some of the backups in the first in the first preseason game, which was not against any starters from the Patriots, warrants thinking that Saquon Barkley might be done. Like we may be able to get rid of him and get similar production. Let me just let you in on a little secret. No, you won't. You won't. The only way you get rid of a Saquon Barkley is if you're devaluing the run altogether. And even then, Barkley's ability as a pass receiver and his ability to run after the catch makes him someone that you want to have around. Oh, well, his contract is coming up. You're going to have to pay him big money. Says who? Why can't you just pay him honest money, legitimate money? You don't have to necessarily pay him big money because out on the market, he's not going to get more than what you probably value him here with the Giants. You can't just cut everybody. You can't just get rid of players who have talent and hope that the players that you replace them with have the same amount of talent. That's not how we win football games. Do you want to win or do you want to rebuild? Because the Giants have not been able to do both at the same time. They've had to rebuild, which then landed them Eli Manning. Built on that, they became a contender. They won. Now you're in a situation. Are you trying to win? Or are you trying to rebuild? Because if you're trying to rebuild, I'll listen to all of the get rid of this player, get rid of that player, move on from them. I can hear it all. That's fine with me. But then when you don't win, I don't want to hear this team is awful. This team doesn't know what they're doing. This coaching staff, these GM that. No. If you want to rebuild, you have to be willing to accept the terrible nature of your team until what time you get to the point where you've rebuilt. But if you're going to try to win, then the way to try to win is not to cut Kenny Golladay. It's not to cut Darius Slayton. It's not to trade away Saquon Barkley. It's not to try to bring in a whole bunch of other guys. It's not an opportunity to see, oh, well, these young guys who have never really proven themselves anywhere else but had a good preseason game can all of a sudden be the replacements for these guys who proved it at a high level in the NFL. It's just not how this thing works. Who would want it to work that way? If you're not willing to go to bat for your own talent, then who are you willing to go to bat for? And before somebody tells me, oh, well, these players are not this current regime's players, yes, they are. They took the job knowing that these players were in place. You don't like the roster? Don't take the job. Don't apply for the job. Don't make it seem as if you think that something can be done with this team if you can't. That's where Washington messed themselves up at. They hired a coach who said, oh, I can work with RG3. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. And then that dude sabotaged that man's career. Purposely sabotaged him to get him out of town so that he could put the quarterback that he wanted in there. And what did that do for that team? Nothing. They were trash. Trash, 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 trash. They win a few games, they lose a few games. They win a few games, they lose a few games. They flirt with the playoffs, they not make the playoffs. Kirk Cousins goes to the Vikings, lo and behold, because they have a little bit better team, they make the playoffs, they don't do anything. They make the playoffs, they don't. Is that really what you want? Giants fans, you want this ho-hum, like not really? No. You don't want to fall into the traps of your rival contenders in division. I'll say, first playoff game, I really like what the offense was doing schematically. Here's my issue, right? And I talked about this on the Locked On Giants podcast with Patricia Trainer. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. But this was the time that we could get a really good apples to apples comparison between Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. Why? Because they both played against the second defense, and they both played against the second defense, and they both played enough significant snaps that you could delineate who had a good game, who didn't. Daniel Jones didn't have a bad game. It wasn't a great game. It wasn't a bad game. Tyrod Taylor had a great game. And instead of people just accepting and admitting that he had a great game, they had to try to diminish it by saying that he's going against twos or threes. And my answer is always the same. So was Daniel Jones. So was Daniel Jones. So now what? We've seen apples to apples comparison. We know that Daniel Jones is the guy. But don't you feel a little bit better as a Giants fan that if Daniel Jones comes out this year and plays subpar football, that the coaching staff has a guy that they could turn to that might be able to get the job done in lieu of the starter, Daniel Jones, not getting the job done? What's What's the negative in this? I'm struggling to understand the negative. I'm struggling to understand why people want so badly for Tyrod Taylor to be awful. Why do they want this man to be awful so badly? Why do they not want to accept the fact that he's a good quality quarterback, whether he's a starter or a backup? He's a good quality quarterback. And now if he uses his powers to influence Daniel Jones to be the best quarterback he can be, we all win as people who cover and people who are fans of the Giants. We all win. Don't you love reading positive content on the Giants? I know I love writing positive content. When I write my 5 things, my 5 plays during the season, I want to write 5 plays that led to a win. I don't want to write about 5 plays that led to a loss, but I do because that's my job. But in reality, I would love to focus on the positive, right? But I have a job to do. If we lose, if the Giants lose, then I'm writing about the 5 reasons they lost. If the Giants win, then I'm writing about the 5 reasons the Giants won. If we lose, then I'm talking about the adjustments necessary in order to try to get a win next time. If we win, I'm talking about the adjustments necessary to continue to move in the right direction. Everything is better on the win. Everything. So we can't just sit back and act as if, we don't want this team to put the best talent it could possibly bet on the field. I've got to win a game. This is the talent that I want. So guess what? There is no magic number. There's no one game, 3 games, 5 games, 7 games, 9 games. If Daniel Jones is not getting the job done, put his butt on the bench and give Tyrod Taylor a chance. And guess what? If Taylor's not getting it done, okay, get back in here. That's what we got to do if we want to be successful. If I'm the coach, that we have to apply pressure. What do we have to lose? We already didn't pick up the 5th-year option, so we're not beholden to Daniel Jones beyond this year. If he's good and we want to take another look at him, franchise him, there's your 5th-year option. You're going to have to pay him anyway in that 5th-year option, the average of the top 5. So why not pay him that 5th-year option because you really want to? Not because you had to, because it was contractually obligated, but because you really want to. In a perfect world, here's what I'd love to see. I would love for Daniel Jones to ball out and get the ball to all the aforementioned people that I said before, who many of you would like to have cut. I would like to see all of them ball out together. Then I would like them all to fall into a deep comatose-like sleep after the game in order to rest and recover and avoid injury. Because the injury bug has been crazy out here, right? It's been crazy. I can't wait till the next preseason game. I'm excited. The running back battle is one that you got to keep your eyes on. But I'm telling you, they will not keep a 3rd running back that does not give them plus advantage in special teams. As a returner, as a gunner, as a blocker, whatever it might be. They're not just interested in keeping 3 guys who don't play special teams. Your starter and your backup not special teamers. That means your third string guy has to be one. Is he a returner? Yes, he is. All right. Can he track the ball in the air? Right? So all of these things come into play, but at the beginning of it is you got to be ready. You got to be ready to do whatever is necessary. So I'm looking forward to watching that running back competition. To me, we've seen enough Saquon Barkley. Put him in bubble wrap, push him off to the side. We'll see you game one. We'll see you game one. Now let's let these other running backs duke it out for the third running back, or maybe even the second and the third running back. Right? Let these guys duke it out. I tell you what I really do need to see more of. Need to see more of the receivers, because there's a level of chemistry that has to happen with the quarterbacks and the receivers. One of the reasons why Tyrod, in my opinion, played better is because Daniel Jones is throwing to a bunch of receivers that he doesn't throw to every day in practice. He mostly throws to the ones. A lot of the ones were not playing. So now you got Daniel Jones working with guys that he doesn't normally work with regularly. Tyrod Taylor working with guys that he normally works with. Yes, he's going to have the advantage. In a perfect world, Daniel Jones comes out and balls to a point where other people are saying this dude needs to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and then the Giants need to trade him for whatever value they can get, because you've already wasted all of those early years. All of those early years for cheap on a rookie contract. I've talked about it before. Tyrod Taylor stays in, remains a Giant, remains the backup as you come and bring a young guy in who either can groom under Tyrod Taylor because he's a great leader, or whom you throw into the mix as the one, and you have Tyrod Taylor behind him just in case something happens, or to mentor him. It's the best world. A lot of quarterbacks in the draft. By the way, Malik Willis looked pretty good for the Titans. I know what people want to say, but I watched the game. He looked pretty good. There are a lot of teams that are going to regret passing on Malik Willis. I hope the Giants are not one. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a Giant issue. I am Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me as always every Monday night, 6 o'clock. Make sure that you tune in live on the YouTube channel, the exclusive home for a Giant issue. My YouTube channel, Coach Gene Clemens. Make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that anytime I post any Giants content, anytime I post a new webcast of a Giant issue, that you are there to see it. Until next time, go Big Blue.